Welcome to the Oak Park Village Clerk Candidate Forum. My name is Peggy Kell, and I'm the Voter Service Chair for the League of Women Voters of Oak Park and River Forest. The League is actually celebrating its 101st birthday tomorrow. It was established 101 years ago, and our league, our local league, was established 97 years ago. Our mission is to educate community members on local, state, and national issues so they can become more informed voters. This is our first candidate forum for the April 6th municipal elections. Following this forum will be the Oak Park Village President Forum, and you can still register for that on the library's website. Many thanks to Rashmi Swain and Bridget Opdahl from the Oak Park Library for all their technical expertise and partnerships. Now, the candidates will be given 1 minute opening, and closing statements. After opening statements, the same questions will be asked of each candidate with 1 minute to answer. Order of speaking will alternate, and the statements and questions will be timed. You'll see a timer box there, so everybody will see it. I will not cut off a candidate if they're finishing their sentence and the timer is done. So we're going to let them finish their thought. The order, again, of speaking will alternate. Since we only have two candidates, it's just one or the other. I, as moderator, will read the questions that are prepared in advance, or we'll look at the chat questions also to try and include them. I will make sure questions are appropriate, and we're going to try and avoid duplications. So, candidates, are you ready? All right. So, LouAnne, you are going to start off with your 1 minute opening statement.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Peggy, and to the League of Women Voters, and to Bridget and Rashmi for pulling all the tech together, and Christina, my lovely opponent, for being here on this very snowy Saturday afternoon. Again, I'm LouAnne Johannesson, and I am running as an independent candidate for the clerk of the Village of Oak Park. I am a lifelong resident of the community, and I am a graduate of Oak Park River Forest High School, as well as my father before me. I'm a single mother of 3 excellent grown children who are off in pursuing their dreams in their lives, and I have been an employee of District 97 for 18 years. Of those 18 years, for the last 11, I've worked with administration at our central office. And for the last 5 years, I've worked with IGOV, the Intergovernmental Board of the Village of Oak Park. And again, I'm happy to be here and to answer questions for the community. So thank you again.
Thank you, LouAnne. All right, Christina, you're next.
Hi, I'm Christina Waters, and I'm running for Oak Park Village Clerk because I love serving our community. I value community engagement, transparency in government, and providing equitable access to our village residents. As deputy clerk, during the presidential election, I had the pleasure to work with so many residents who were struggling to find information, understand voters' registration process, and learn about all things mail-in ballot so that they could vote safely and easily. The League of Women Voters and I share a common core value to preserve our democratic process and allow all voters the right to exercise their vote simply and equitably. As a Black and Latina woman, this moral imperative strikes me deeply. I believe that we have opportunities to create stronger relationships across our community. That means community members, village staff, our elected officials, partner agencies, and taxing bodies. We can achieve this by leveraging community, simplifying our processes, increasing transparency, and directly put, better communication. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you. Okay, first question, we're going to start with Christina. What do you feel is the most important duty of being a village clerk, and why? Now, again, as I read these questions, if you want me to repeat them the second time when it's your turn, I'm more than happy to do that. Or if you didn't hear me correctly, just ask me to say it again. We have more than enough time to go over these questions. All right, Christina, you're first.
So the most important duty and why? The most important duty for the village clerk within the village clerk role is definitely community engagement and active community engagement. We don't want to passively engage our community in a way that the information is brought to them after the decision has been made. We want to be able to bring that information to them before the decisions are being made so that they can be a part of that decision-making process. One way that I know that we can do this is by bringing out the agendas a little bit earlier. That process right now, they are definitely following protocol and what's laid out by state laws and statutes, local statutes. However, there can be benefit in bringing out those agendas a couple of days, even if 48 hours in advance to what they're doing it now. But I do know that as a staff member, that is an entire paradigm shift, but I know that we can make that happen together.
Okay, great. Thank you. LouAnne?
The most important, I would agree with Christina that community engagement is incredibly important. And as an elected independent office, I think it's also important to stress the transparency of data available to the community as well as resources. I would say that the village clerk currently, Vicki Skaman, has made great strides in advancing transparency of the office. I think that we have some issues with communication out early ahead of vote making in the village board. But I would also say that part of the issue might go to our website that I find to be very cumbersome and not user-friendly. I would also say that one of the most important things that the village clerk can do is to be a point person for anyone in the community that really doesn't know where to go for help, whether they be a renter, an owner, a small business person, that the clerk's office really needs to be open communication and open question answering sessions for community members so that they do feel heard and that they do know where to go when they have a problem.
Thank you. All right, LouAnne, you're going to start the next question. The clerk's office oversees the village board's advisory commissions. What are the challenges to this responsibility?
The challenges to that responsibility, I think, are twofold. First of all, I think that there has been limited participation for people in the community with the expertise and the passion for certain subjects in the community because of time constraints on them, especially as working parents or working adults. I would personally like to see something moving forward that what we've learned from COVID is that oftentimes virtual events and virtual meetings are so much easier to access for the community. So I would like to see moving forward that we have sort of a hybrid of what we're doing now when we do go back into in-person meetings. I would also stress that my work with the 4 standing board community-led subcommittees for the Board of Education have been incredibly successful in recruiting people with expertise to save money and time for the taxpayers. And I would like to be involved in how we recruit members for the commissions.
Thank you. Christina?
So challenges with the commission, overseeing the commissions right now. One challenge I see, and they've done such a wonderful job to really break down some of these barriers, but there are some barriers to entry. So currently the application process is laid out in a way that would have the applicant or the volunteer reach directly out to one of the chairs of whichever commission that they're interested in being a part of. Some people aren't comfortable doing that. Some people aren't comfortable, government can be a little intimidating at times. And so ensuring that we meet people where they're at, and the clerk can really bring those two people together. They can bring the chair and the volunteer together. And so that's something that the clerk can definitely do. And then rebuilding trust between our village commissions and our elected officials and our village staff. That's imperative, and reevaluating is part of that process.
Great, thank you. You're going to do the next question first, Chris. Share an experience when you applied new technology or information to your job.
So when I was a part of the Human Resources Department, and I think COVID really catapulted this into a virtual space in a digital way. I was the HR coordinator for the Village of Oak Park, and I would walk around a piece of paper to get everyone's signature, the HR directors, the finance directors, and then the village managers. And so it was this very manual process. And I was able to utilize a current resource that the village has in Adobe, and having digital signatures really made that process so much more efficient for staff. It made it more efficient for tracking purposes. And it was right on time for me to take that project on and to implement it, because then COVID hit us like a ton of bricks in March of last year. So we were able to get these documents signed And that process was already laid out and ready to go once we were all quarantined and having to live in this virtual space like we are today. Hopefully we'll be out soon though.
Cross our fingers. Thank you. LouAnne?
I would say that I was instrumental in helping with a panel at District 97 to implement a new system for our HR department that deals specifically with the professional development requirements for staff, for teachers for the licensure, as well as coordinating a place where they could look at a catalog of all different kinds of PD that were coming up that were specific to their roles, whether they be related services, teachers or administration. We implemented a system called Frontline that works directly with what we use now for our absentee and HR needs, and it's been really remarkable. It's really streamlined the process for people, and because now we have all of our outside PD and inside PD being virtual, it's been a real helpful tool to staff to be able to manage their time and to get the accreditation that they need going.
Thank you. All right, LouAnne, you're going to get the next question. First, what is the key to success when communicating with the public?
Wow, the key to the success of communicating with the public is certainly utilizing the tools that are available to you in whatever role that you are currently occupying. I would say for the village clerk, again, I would harp a little bit on the website being not very user-friendly, and I would like to see that challenged within the village. But I would also say that some of the challenges that I personally have had working with community engagement and family engagement committees with the district, as well as outreach to our families that are disaffected and students who really need more supports, is that it's been very difficult. And even when I work with iGov, hearing about the other 6 taxing bodies in town, some of the biggest challenges in Oak Park are reaching the people who need services the most. Some of the work that I've done with some of the outside agencies is utilizing text messaging, which is often a better way to communicate with people. And so I would say that I would like to see more outreach with that, because we really have a lot of people who are not necessarily on social media and need some more help in accessing services.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
So communicating with the public, again, COVID and these unprecedented times absolutely taught us that we need to meet people where they are, and we have to be innovative and adjust. So for example, for public comment, I'd love to see that we can take phone calls, that we can continue to take emails, and that we can meet people where they are at so that they can also have a voice in government. I also think that in terms of communication, not everyone has internet access. Not everyone has the ability to come up to Village Hall. And so that's where the clerk comes in. The clerk can really be this conduit of information and be the person that people can reach out to find out how best to get this information. And that's going to take some creativity and some innovation within the clerk's office to really make that happen for the community.
Okay, thank you. You're going to be first on this question. Should the responsibilities of the village clerk be expanded? And if yes, where? And if no, what should be taken off the plate?
So I know, because I'm currently in the office, that there are certain things that the clerk signs off on, such as some business licensing, liquor licensing, special permits. Those things are something that actually has the signature of the clerk. And so I would like to see more oversight and more responsibility given to the clerk and the clerk's office, so that anything that we are required to sign off on, we are also a part of that process. But currently we are, we're responsible for managing all of the documents. And again, I know this firsthand because we, all of the board documents, so all of the board agendas, all of the agreements. I mean, if you take a quick look at the agenda for next Tuesday, I mean, we have a plethora of agreements on the consent agenda. So it's our responsibility to also manage those as well. But anything that has the clerk's authority should also have the clerk involved in it as well.
Thank you. LouAnne?
I would like to see the clerk's office expand its outreach and also its informational impact on new businesses that are considering coming into Oak Park. I know that they go through the zoning commission at this point and a couple of other directors at Village Hall, but I do think because the clerk does work with existing records, transparency, access to information, as well as, again, community engagement and a lot of information that new businesses might have questions about. What commission do I talk to? What director I talk to? I'd like to see more interaction with the clerk's office and those directors that deal with new businesses that are considering coming into the community. As far as what is on the plate, you know, I think that there is very statutory responsibilities for the role of the village clerk. So it's hard to say that, you know, record keeping and dealing with village management and the board meetings, you know, it's a lot of work, but I can't see it really falling anywhere else.
Great, thank you. LouAnne, you're going to have the next question first. Share an effective approach to working with a large amount of data.
Well, I would say that a large amount of data. I mean, a lot of data that is collected within the community, not just Village Hall, but the 6 governing bodies, really comes from survey information. I would like to see easier access to user-friendly and layperson explanations of data that comes in from the surveys that we all do throughout town. I would also say that I think that sometimes, even within Oak Park District 97, when we're dealing with student data and where we're dealing with metrics, that it's a huge amount of data, obviously, but I would like to see that stuff comes with almost a user instruction manual to the layperson so that they can understand, yes, you've collected this data, these are your metrics, but what does that mean to my child? What does that mean to me as a taxpayer? What does that mean in the scope of where the board is going to be going with decisions? So I think that there, you know, we certainly manage a lot of data, but to make it accessible and easier to understand to the community is something that's really something that needs to be addressed.
Okay, great. Christina?
Okay, so an effective approach. So currently within the clerk's office and at the village, we have a program called Granicus/Legistar. And so that is where so much of our information and our documents are housed, held, managed. So those are internal documents, right? But I know that Granicus has a branch and a suite that would allow us to really communicate not only communicate, but also gather large amounts of data from our community. So I'm working with Granicus now, just calling them, getting training, really getting my feet wet into the program. I've been working with it for 3.5 years, but again, this is a new role in a new space, and I'm working with it very differently now. So I know Granicus, again, a resource that we currently have in the clerk's office at the village, is a very robust program, and we just have to figure out different ways to utilize it.
Okay, Chris, you're going to have the next question first. Everyone running for office claims to be in favor of equity. What does equity mean to you, and what concrete actions do you support to further equity?
So equity is definitely something that I look at and I see a visual. Right? I see that visual of the fence and the people and the boxes. There are some cases where to be an equitable space, we've got to make accommodations. We've got to make space and places for people to be able to get the same access to information and to technology and to data and to resources. So all of those things are housed and are within the village government. And so we have to be able to provide government information equitably across the board. Again, no internet access, how am I going to get this information to you? If you aren't able to make it up to Village Hall, how would you like for me to drop this on your porch? I know the current clerk, Vicki Skaman, is phenomenal at meeting people where they are. And so that is what makes equity happen in this village.
Thank you. LouAnne?
You know, none of us can say that we can understand the life experience of everybody, but we do understand that some people need more help and more access within the community. I would say that my understanding of how each of the 6 different taxing bodies work and what they're doing to move towards equity is excellent. People are working on actual written policy at this point. But what I would like to see and how I think that we further equity within the community is finding greater ways for these 6 governing bodies to collaborate and communicate with one another more efficiently and more effectively, you know, to the point with you can't get to Village Hall. Well, you know what? Let's start talking to the township about getting access to busing to get them to Village Hall. You don't have internet. Let's talk to the experts. You know, District 97 in the village right now is working on this underground fiber. How do we get access to everybody in the community? I think understanding the individual needs of everyone in the community and trying to meet those needs of the individuals is how we move equity forward in Oak Park.
Great, thank you. LouAnne, you'll get this first question, or you get the question first, I'm sorry. Voting options were expanded by state legislators for the 2020 presidential election. Do you think these options should continue for future elections?
Oh, I absolutely do, without hesitation. I think that expanding the time limits for early voting was very important. I think that the expansion of mail-in voting was also very important. Obviously, it was done within the context of the pandemic and people who, you know, were afraid to go out and be standing in line. But, you know, those lines are important too. And if there's more access to be able to vote early and to be able to vote by mail, we also increase the amount of people who are able to vote. What we never want to do is to have an obstacle in the way from anyone who wants to vote to be able to vote. I think that these were excellent suggestions, not just here in Oak Park and not just Cook County, but across the nation. I think that we definitely need to expand upon that. I also personally, in my life, think that we need to have, you know, a federal holiday on election day for people who like that experience of going on the day of voting. But I also say that any way that we can get more people involved in the voting process is something we need to identify and continue.
Thank you. Christina.
So again, I can reach back into my experience over this last presidential election as the deputy clerk. I highly recommend that we continue what we had available for voters at that time. I can remember getting 50+ calls a day asking for, how do I register? Can you help me register? Where will the secure drop box be? How long is, I would be outside, you know, how long is the wait in line? And so while there is definitely room for improvement for early voting at Village Hall specifically, the options that were provided to voters, again, it's how we meet the people where they are, right? Being able to just walk up to a drop box for some seniors, for anyone, was just more convenient. And so we have to make voting, which is our right, we have to make voting as convenient as possible. Thank you.
The league agrees with both of you. And let's see, Christina, you're going to start this next question. What is your position regarding virtual, user-friendly, and transparency to Oak Park trustee meetings and prompt minutes?
That's imperative. That is what we're talking about when we talk about transparency and access. Those minutes, they have to be available to our community in a timely manner. And I know most often I'm feverishly working on the minutes to make sure that they are done. I watch the village board meeting Monday nights or Tuesday, like this up and coming one is Tuesday, and ensure that they are done as soon as possible, entered into Granicus as soon as possible, so that they can be uploaded, not just for our community to see, but also for our trustees to see right away, and our village president as well. So that is imperative, minutes, and then also the agenda, all of the documents, the agreements, all of that information is accessible now. But again, always room for improvement, right? Personally and professionally, and as an organization. And we can work together to try to make these agendas accessible a couple of days earlier.
Great, thank you. LouAnne?
I absolutely agree with that. In my role at District 97 with the subcommittees for the Board of Education, I am responsible for not only recording, but putting out the minutes for each of those committee meetings. And it's incredibly important. First of all, the public has a right to know as soon as possible. Again, with COVID, we've had such an increase in people who actually sign in and are able to see our board meetings live. But, you know, we don't know if we're going to continue a hybrid event. And I think it's just super important to get the information out to the public as soon as possible. Again, it also goes to the board being able to reflect on what was said, especially because, you know, we have the process, which is state sanctioned, where, you know, an item is brought up at one meeting and then voted on at the next. And it's really imperative for the board to be able to look at exactly what was said, see what was going on, identify those documents to make a firm decision. And the public needs to do that as well so that they can comment prior to a vote by the board. So I agree that they need to be timely and available to everyone.
Great, thank you. LouAnne, you'll start this question. Why should the clerk be elected? An elected position?
The clerk is an elected position actually by state statute. And I think that it's important that the clerk be independent. And I think that because the clerk is elected by the public and functions as basically an employee of the public, there's no room for side agenda. Transparency and independence in particular is important in the clerk's office, and so that has a lot to do with being elected, that you answer directly to, responsibly to the public. And also I think that as the person that is responsible for the official record keeping of the village, as well as the holder of the seal, the person who does the logistics and handles the operational aspects of the election, it's very important that you be directly responsible to the public. Those are huge responsibilities. And I think that that is why it being elected and not appointed and not a hired position, it holds it to a higher standard to the public.
Thank you. Christina?
So much like the role itself is for the people, and if we can put it together in one sentence, for the people, by the people. It's the Oak Park community that selects who they want in this position. So it is the people's choice who they would like to hold this independent position and in this independent office. Whereas, and I know as an employee, right, I was hired by the Village of Oak Park. I was interviewed by various people within the Village of Oak Park, within the various positions that I was in. But to be an elected official, again, that is the people's choice. It's who the people want to be in that office. So that is imperative, and it should continue to be an elected position because it should be independent of the village team and employees, so that it's always at the forefront that the community is the #1 priority.
Thank you. Christina, you'll start on this next one. What do you see as the clerk's role relative to the village board? And second, relative to the village manager?
So relative to the village board, I see the clerk as the relationship builder. That position is the person who, I won't say holds it all together, but maybe so. Right now, we've seen a lot of challenges with our board. And I think it could be the clerk's role to be a part of effective change and better communication. In terms of with the village manager, that's the clerk's role, is to serve as a conduit of information, letting the village manager know what the people would like, allowing the people to have a voice. So the village clerk has to work seamlessly throughout elected officials, village management, and the community. And I currently do that now, so I would love to be able to continue to do that as clerk.
Great, thank you. LouAnne?
The village clerk's role with the board is to handle logistics for their meetings, all of the basic secretarial work basically for the board. But beyond that, I think that it is definitely the clerk's office acts as a bridge of information to the community on what is going on with the Board of not Board of Education, that's what I do now, with the Village Board. It's also imperative that the clerk be independent of the board to be able to make sure that policy and ordinances that are voted on the board are being implemented in the proper way. In terms of working with the village clerk, the village clerk is the employee of the village board. And so to that extent, that's where the implementation happens. I think the clerk's role should be to aid both in handling everything that the board needs to be able to make the proper decisions. And then once those decisions and those policies and those ordinances are passed, help the village manager communicate out what that means to the community, as well as making sure everything is appropriately implemented.
Great. LouAnne, you're going to start this next question. Can the clerk do anything to lower property taxes?
The independence of the clerk goes very far. And part of that is the clerk does not set policy. The clerk does not set the budget. The clerk is there to help implement in any way possible and to communicate information out to the public. As a two-way street, I would say that when businesses, renters, landlords, homeowners are having difficulty with their taxes, with the revenue that they pay to the village, the clerk can help facilitate getting that information to the policymakers. I can also say that the clerk has a limited budget. They can certainly look at tax savings within that budget, but as much as we would all like to be effective in lowering taxes in Oak Park with the tax burden that we're handling right now, there's not a lot that you can do policy-wise as the clerk. But I think that collaboration and cooperation with the other taxing bodies can certainly lower the tax burden on all members of the community.
Thank you. Christina?
I caught it, I'm muted. I have to admit, I don't know that I necessarily have the answer to that right now. What I can see the clerk doing is helping people get to the township, because again, we're trying to work within our intergovernmental bodies, the township, D200, D97. So when it comes to taxes, we can guide our constituents and our community to the township and get them the information that they need. I do know taxes, as I think most people in Oak Park know, how difficult taxes can be and how high they can be. But I don't necessarily, again, I don't have the answer right now. I'm dedicated to finding that answer, but I don't know that the clerk would be able to lower taxes per se, but certainly within the clerk's role, we can guide you in that right direction.
Great. Okay. Chris, you're going to get the next question. Share an experience in which your attention to detail and thoroughness had an impact on your last project or your last job.
So I'd say that's in the current role that I'm in. We're currently right now, the deputy clerk is responsible for labeling all of the board documents with the item number and the ordinance number and the date. So you have to be very meticulous in that process. And what I'm, again, working with Granicus to find out, because we want to create efficiencies. We want to be able to use our robust systems so that we don't have to look for additional resources. And right now we are in a pandemic still, and we have to work within the current resources that we have. And so that attention to detail, again, working with Granicus, is there a way that we can do this more efficiently and more effectively so that it can be done within the system, which would allow that deputy clerk role to be freed up a bit more to do other things within the clerk's office?
Great, thank you. LouAnne?
I would say that most significantly and recently, my attention to detail and following through on something is my work with the Claim Committee, which is, again, the Committee for Legislative Action, Intervention, and Monitoring with the school district, is back in 2013. I identified, along with Dr. Starks-Turner at the district, that there is a huge problem in the state of Illinois where we are not a unified school district. We have District 97, District 90, and District 200. there's a problem in data sharing from kindergarten all the way through senior year in high school, where we're treated differently as a unified school, a non-unified school district than unified school districts. And in following the detail and following legislation over all these years, and pounding the pavement and working on watching bills, following the Education Commission, following education legislation in Springfield, we finally found ourselves in a position where a data sharing bill is going to be introduced by Senator Harman this spring. And the detail and following that for many, many years is going to now impact instructional benefit for our students moving to the high school. Peggy, I think you're muted.
Sorry, the dogs are barking. I muted myself. How do you visualize engaging underrepresented community members?
Is this to me?
Yes, you're starting.
Well, again, through so much of the work that I've done with District 97 and also iGov and many of the non-for-profits in town, this has been a challenge that's been going on for many, many years. There are always ideas and brainstorming that go on how to engage our most vulnerable families and community members. I think that what we've learned in COVID is that some access is more available to people if they do have internet to be involved. But again, I go back to some initiatives that I saw working with the collaboration of early childhood, where they literally hit the pavement. They walked through block parties. They stood outside apartment buildings. They communicated, they tried to get text messages to people. I think this is an ongoing challenge for Oak Park. I can't imagine any issue that I've worked on where we have not had the challenge to engage and find a way to communicate with our most vulnerable citizens. It's an ongoing thing, and I look forward to the challenge to finding the answer to it and pushing it forward.
Thank you. Christina? You're muted.
I was talking to my 18-year-old walking by. Sorry about that. So engaging underrepresented community members, that's engaging people like me. When I was coming into this space, into my comfort zone within local government and having a voice, it was really people who came to me and met me where I was at. And so that is absolutely necessary. It's just meeting folks and meeting the community and engaging the community where they are at. Whether that be, again, virtually, if it's going to meet a constituent, if it's going for coffee, if it's however people need to be met. That is how we meet them. If I didn't have the guidance, if I didn't have the mentorship, if people weren't meeting me where I was at 30, 25 years old, I would not be where I am today. So meeting people, meeting the underserved where they're at is like figuring out how I was met back in the day.
Good, thank you. LouAnne?
I thought I already answered.
Okay.
You did. It's all good.
Okay.
Thank you, Christina.
All right,
Was that the question?
You should be the moderator. Okay, our final question, because I see no more questions in chat and I have no more questions, but our final question before your closing statements is, provide an example of when your ethics were tested. And Christina, you're going to start this. Provide an example for when your ethics were tested.
My ethics are tested every day in everything that I do and everything that I say. I test my own ethics. I question them all the time to ensure they're on point. I have to be authentic to myself. This pandemic tests our ethics, right? We have to, for me, my I statement, I always want to show grace, kindness, patience, love. That is how I always want to go into all things that I'm involved in. And ultimately, when you stand true and strong in those things, it's ethical, right? When you ensure those things are aligned with one another, when I'm following what my ancestors have paved for me and I'm leading with that, it is always with ethics at the forefront. And so I think our ethics have been tested so many times within this pandemic, and it's just imperative that we're always making sure that we're being ethical.
Thank you. LouAnne?
I think the truest examples of where my ethics have been tested, at least in my later adult life, is how I handle a situation where I am confronted with something that I absolutely, utterly disagree with, or confronted with a situation where I just see wrong being done. I think that when I was younger, I was very vocal and I was a lot more hot-tempered than I am now. I think my children can definitely contest to that. I think the ethical change and the ethical challenge for me is trying to understand people's perspective and politely disagree with them, and understand for myself that I'm never going to back down on what I truly believe and how I was raised, what I feel is important. But I try to listen and I try to have respect for people who have a different perspective. And I think that ethically speaking, I definitely always try to change their minds, but I try to live up to it every day.
Thank you. You know, we do have one more question in the chat, and I think we're going to take this one. So I lied. And then that will be, let's see. So LouAnne, you're going to take this one first. Let's see. You may have heard of the recent efforts to encourage the Oak Park Village to take effective action on climate change, including a comprehensive climate action plan. What do you think is the village clerk's role during the board's consideration and or under the village's implementation of such an initiative?
That's an excellent and very timely question. I know the board is sitting on something like $2.5 million through their work with ComEd over the last few years and have to date not spent the money. I know that Dr. Susan Buchanan, one of the trustees, started this climate committee. I proudly say that my son, who works in solar, is on the committee. So I hear about solar all the time, and I hear about what we can do with this money and the sustainability plans for the village. I would say that the village clerk's role in this is very, very important to get community input, to engage with the community. And I do think that this is an excellent opportunity to do bridge building with the Austin community. You know, dirty water and dirty air doesn't stop at Austin Boulevard. And there are amazing people working on the west side on this very issue because there's such an equity in terms of pollution in our community. And so I think that the role of the clerk would be get information out to the public that the village is going to spend money on this and get input from the village to share with the board on how those dollars are best spent for everyone's benefit.
Thank you. Christina?
So I think I remember the question, and I don't want you to have to repeat it because it's a long one. So
that's okay. Sustainability. We have time, but it's just include. Let's see, where is the question? It was in chat. That's what I was reading it from.
I got you. Let me see. I think I've got it. Okay. So for sustainability in general, I'm not the expert, right? I am not a scientist. I don't have all the answers, but we have some phenomenal organizations in Oak Park that do. We have leaders like the Park District of Oak Park that we need to lean on. Yes, the village can definitely, and I know from experience, the village has steps to make in the right direction, right? And so we need to look at our leaders that are on the forefront of sustainability change. And the Park District is certainly one of those leaders. We also have 7 Generations Ahead and Planet Green. And we even have our Environment and Energy Commission. And so it's really relying on these experts in our community, working again with all of our taxing bodies to figure out the answers to those solutions, to those sustainability solutions for the greater Oak Park.
Great. Thank you, guys. Sorry for the last minute question. Okay, we're going to end up with closing statements. Again, if you have other thoughts you want to finish from maybe another question, or if you just want to do a closing statement of 1 minute, Christina, you're going to start with the closing statement.
So in closing, well, first and foremost, I want to thank everybody who's participated today. A huge shout out to the League of Women Voters. When we talk about voter suppression and voters' rights, you all are at the forefront of ensuring that people get their votes out. So thank you for having both of LouAnne and I today, and thanks for the community. So I just want to also say I am running for Village Clerk because this is my life's work. This is my passion, to work with the community, to engage the community, and to build bridges between government, information, and data, and government officials, employees, and the community. I'm in a unique and wonderful position that I've worked with all three entities. I've worked with elected officials, I've been on the village team, and I've worked with the community for many years. And so that's all I have in closing.
Thank you very much. All right, LouAnne, closing statement.
I also want to thank you, Peggy, again, the library and the League of Women Voters, and thank you, Christina. This has been a great dialogue, I think, for the community. So thank you very much. I want to say that, you know, I'm running for Village Clerk for the same reasons. I love Oak Park. I mean, Christina and I have lived here our whole lives. We never left. There's a reason. I think that Oak Park's brightest days are ahead. We face a lot of challenges. I think that a mirror has been held up to us in a lot of ways over the last few years, where we've seen where we have fallen down on some of the promises that we've made to one another as community members. And I can't wait to see us push through and do bigger and brighter things. I also want to say that what I think I bring to the table, again, is all of my work, not just with District 97, but my work with iGov has been invaluable to me. And it's what pushed me really to want to pursue more community service and to run for this office. I love the idea of understanding and the work that I've done with all 6 taxing bodies, and to see where collaboration and cooperation between them really benefits everybody. So again, thank you for this opportunity, Peggy. It's been delightful.
Well, ladies, I have to tell you, you are trying to fill shoes of a lot of strong, good examples in the past, from Ginny Casson to Sandra Sokol to Terry Powell and Vicky Skaman. So yes. I think you've acquitted yourselves quite well today. And I want you to thank you both for your time and your candor. And thank you for stepping up to serve this community, because Oak Park's not easy. I've been there, done that. Oak Park's not easy. And you stepping up to serve your community is admirable. I just want to tell everybody that's been viewing this that you can see the rest of the schedule for all of the other 11 forums that we will be having on our website, which is LWVOPRF.org. You can also register to attend there and also submit questions there. You don't have to wait for the form to submit it via chat. You can submit them in advance to the League's email address. And you can also register for any of these forums on the Oak Park website for the Oak Park forums and the River Forest website for the River Forest forums. Our next forum will start at 3:30 for the village president. And again, thank you to the library, Rashmi Swain and Bridget Opthalt for their great help and great work today. I think it's smooth. We're hoping to have this posted, recorded and posted within 2 days. So look at our website or look at the library's website. And if you missed it, or if you want to tell someone else to be able to view this, give them that information so other people can see it. So again, thank you both very much, and we will adjourn until 3:30.
Thank you, Peggy.